Those of you who are outside the hall, I know you can hear me because I have a very big voice and it can get even bigger. Please come in and join us. All right. All right, well, those who have joined us, and those who have not, but they'll be in here shortly. So why don't we begin this very, very important panel? We can actually begin it with a chant. And when our movement is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. What do? Stand up, fight back. And that's what we do. We stand up, fight back. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Mick Kelly. I was one of the anti-war 23. When I'm a speaker, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But we have a group of very, very important panelists right here today, and I advise you strongly to give them your undivided attention. We have some cases that are of great political importance for our entire movement, and we know that when we have an effective movement, we also face repression. The two things go together, being effective on one hand and facing repression on the other hand. They're like twins. And we can and will defeat repression. So before we get into all the speakers, again, I want to encourage all those who are outside to come in and join us. But let's commence with this important event. And we're going to be having the talks, and they're very important. And then we're going to be hopefully we'll have time for questions and answers. That's right, come on in. There's so many of us here today from so many important movements, and that's right, I'm delaying a few seconds in order to bring people inside and get people to listen to these actually really critical cases. We have the Ruhu people here. This is a critical case to our movement, so let's all come on inside. Thank you. Come on inside. And here we have the timekeeper joining us too. Excellent. A most important figure. All right. So in all seriousness, as I was just saying a few moments ago, that we aim to have an effective movement. We stand against American wars, and we stand with Palestine, and we stand with all oppressed. We're serious. We're absolutely serious about our commitment to liberation, and we understand that one of the effects of being effective people, effective organizing an effective movement is that we can and will face repression. Now, we've been seeing that in the Palestine movement. We've seen people losing their jobs. We've seen people being pushed off the college campuses, seen attempts to have our rights taken away. And it's vital that each and every case of repression be met with resistance, and determined resistance at that. And at this point, I'm going to begin my presentation, and I'm going to be introducing the other speakers. But for those of you who do not know me, I'm Mick Kelly, and I was one of the anti-war 23. It was a group of activists, international solidarity and anti-war folks, trade unionists and others, who on September 24th were raided by the FBI and subsequently subpoenaed to a grand jury. On the morning of September 24th, what happened is this. About 70 agents accompanied, I don't see her. Sarah, stand up. Sarah was called to a grand jury in Chicago, and they were very serious about putting her in prison, and she stood up to the grand jury. Tom Burke, who's over here, he's on the stage with me. He's another person who was called to the grand jury and successfully resisted. So we have a lot of people. Is there other people involved in the case? I don't see any, but there's a lot of us. So if I overlooked somebody, I'm truly sorry. But so what happened at my house on the morning of September 24th was this. I wasn't there. Just wasn't there. I was at work in a kitchen. But at home, my partner was there, and down the door, smashed a fish tank, and suddenly the place was full of an FBI SWAT team. And this was repeated in other places around the country. And it was a dramatic set of raids that was designed to put anti-war and international solidarity activists in jail. So if you look at the warrant for my house and the houses of the others, it basically was looking at a case of material support for terrorism. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But material support of terrorism is basically a thought crime. It says that if you stand in solidarity, effective solidarity, with the National Liberation Movement, we will put you in jail, and we'll put you in jail for a very long period of time. So the groups mentioned on my warrant were the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, it's the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and last but not least, Hezbollah. But the thing about this is this, and that is that I think all those are great groups full of great people doing great things. And I'd never made a secret of that point of view. Never made a secret. You could look on the internet, you can see pictures of me with Layla Khalid from the Popular Front. It's not, whatever, it's not hidden, it's not concealed, nothing about it. But what the Effective Death Penalty and Prevention of Terrorism Act does, it makes it a crime to carry out effective solidarity with national liberation movements. And it's very, very important that it be opposed, and it's a very, very serious charge. Typically, and Mel could talk about this more, every count of material support carries 15 years. Typically, those who are charged are convicted, and those who are convicted end up in what's called a control unit once you get to prison. That's basically a prison within a prison, usually for Muslims. And that's just a reality of America today. We were effective in defeating those charges. And actually, quite truthfully, we were never charged. But we were effective in pushing back against those charges. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the lessons of that, because I think they're applicable for other cases. You know, one is that we were absolutely determined to resist. Not one person testified in front of the grand jury. And for those of you, I think most of you know about grand juries, but for those of you who do not, let me say this. If you get to a grand jury and you don't talk, you can be put in prison. It's actually just that simple. It's meant to be coercive. In other words, they can hold you until they decide that, well, you're never going to talk, and at that point, they're supposed to let you go. But it's a very serious thing. All 23 of us refused to testify in front of the grand jury. So that resistance and public resistance was actually vital to our success. Number two, we had an approach of relying on the masses of people. I have only 5 minutes left. And by that, I mean we had to go out in a very big way to bring the broadest possible support around our case. And I think we were very effective in that. We held regional conferences. We formed something called the Committee to Stop FBI Repression. Hundreds of people attended those conferences. We got the endorsement or support from trade unions, actually trade unions representing about 500,000 people. We sent delegations to Congress to push about our case. And at every step of the way, we did everything possible to say the democratic rights of those who want to resist imperialism are under attack. We tried to build as big as possible tent to unite as all who can be united to push back against these charges. And I think that was successful. And finally, we had a good legal strategy that was aggressive, that did things like push back, like the Justice Department had my passport, not just mine, others too. We pushed back legally against that, and we pushed back actually at every single point that we could, and had an aggressive strategy that was all about defending our rights. Now, our case was linked with a group of others, and this went on for about 8 years. And I'm not going to be able, for the standpoint of time, to recall all of them, but the two key ones in this is Carlos Montes, former leader of the Brown Berets, who was raided in Los Angeles in 2012, and then Bismi Oda, who eventually, ended up not doing any jail time, or a minimal amount, was eventually deported. But in all those cases, I think the fundamental principles are the same. We need to mobilize people, we need to be aggressive, draw people into motion, and have effective legal strategies. So those are the basic points and basic lessons that I wanted to hit on. I think I have not used my 10 minutes in its entirety. So that being the case, I want to be a positive example, not just kind of a do what I say, kind of, do what I say to do, not what I do. But I'm going to take it to the other speakers. In the first, I'm done.